back with another video on the Z8. The big problem that I have with this camera is that you can't set it to display the highlight warning in the red histogram. On the D810 and the D500, you can change which channel you want to show clipping. And on the Z8, as far as I can tell, and I've looked really hard, you can't do it. And you also can't change the value upon which or within which it starts to show you that you're clipping. And allow me to show you what that looks like. Light meter, remote control. All right, I have f4 and 2/3. I have for 8, 4.9, 4.8. So f5.6. I'll make my point. f5.6. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a photograph, camera set, 60th at 5.6. I'm sitting in the chair. Every photograph I take will be from the same position. So f5.6, that's what I look like on the screen. So now we need to bring it up 1/3 of a stop. And 1/3 of a stop. And you'll see I'm getting brighter in the screen. But there's no highlight warning. And as I go up, getting brighter, until finally, at some point, there will be a highlight warning. And at least I think so. There should be. Is it on the highlight screen? Yeah? Okay. Are we there? All right, so now we have a highlight warning. But if you wanted to, try one more here. If you wanted to use that as a warning as to whether or not your image is overexposed, you are in deep trouble. Now let me show you this in Capture One, and I'll show you what I really mean. And there I am. Me a few different ways. So the last photo, the last two photos had gamma warnings coming on. So now if we look at this photo here, and we just use my little hand, and we're moving it over to the highlights on my face. I mean, technically, I guess we're not actually clipping, but holy cow, that's close. 248, 250, and if we come in, and nobody needs to see anybody this close, but if you look at the tip of my nose, 245. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it would be, it's hard to believe that that is not overexposed in the red channel. And I think technically it isn't, but it's getting so close. And I would love for the camera to not be waiting until my forehead is at 255 before it's telling me that I've completely blown my red highlights. So that's the issue. And the issue is that both the Nikon D500 and the Nikon D810 allow you to have a situation where you can have the camera show you the red channel clipping, like I was saying before. And on the Z8, for whatever reason, I'm really worried that I am going to get into situations, and I have already had this come up, where I've been photographing a pasty white guy like myself, and I've ended up in a situation where I've been overexposing things, or coming really close to overexposing things. And I don't want to, I mean, it's a bit of a challenge, because I don't, you know, do we have to wait until everything's at 255 before we start saying, hey guys, we got a problem? And the other thing as well that I don't see is that, can you actually set your endpoints on your gamut warning to something a little bit lower, like say 250 or 245, because that would be ideal. But I, you know, looking through the manual, I didn't see that, and it's a bit of a head scratcher, because I mean, maybe I'm missing something, maybe I just don't get it, but I can overexpose things without knowing it, and it's really worrisome. Now, a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, the last video we did was the buyer's regret video, which described me, which was me describing a whole bunch of stuff that was sort of external to the Z8. You know, the filter size for the 24-70, the fact that Capture One didn't get updated, that kind of stuff. So, you know, the tripod plate on the bottom, that sort of thing. So, but I've had the Z8 now for a few weeks. I've shot a few jobs with it. And for those of you who were commenting on the fact that I was, you know, fill in the blank, dumb, crazy, to bring it on a job, I didn't bring the camera on a job without an adequate backup unless or until I was confident shooting the camera. I mean, I'm stupid, but I'm not that stupid. So, so just for those of you who are wondering, I didn't expose myself to anything, there wasn't a lot of exposure, pardon the pun, with me and my business doing this. So, some other people commented that I should read the manual. So I have read the manual, all 948 pages of it. And I learned some really interesting things about the camera. But one of the things that I learned about the camera is that there were a couple of things where I thought, oh, I could turn that off. And then I thought, you know, like just like, you know, little things, you know, like options and that kind of stuff. And options that I'm sure I'll never need. But then it occurred to me that if I ever need that option in a million years, I'd never be able to find it unless I knew exactly where to go. So I just left everything kind of in place. So talking about the camera and talking about what I like about it, and I'm not going to spend too much time talking about what I like about it because it's way more fun to complain about what's wrong. So what I like is, I like the fact that the shutter release, or the remote release that I bought for my D70 back in probably 2012, 2010, something like that, I don't know, still works on this camera, which is actually really great. I love how quick it is. It's snappy. I love the EVF with my older eyes. I love being able to review things in the viewfinder. I love being able to switch between FX and DX and actually just have the viewfinder, fill the frame with the view. I love the fact that you can put the focus point anywhere on the frame. And the other fact that I love is that because it focuses off the chip, you can be really, you can comfortably or confidently shoot lenses wide open, which is really nice, and expect that the focus to land where it needs to land. I mean, certainly shooting my 58 1.4 at 1.4 in marginal conditions, it was pretty hit and miss, even with the focus on the D500, where the 1.2 lens on the Z8 is more reliable when it comes to focus. So here's what I don't really care about this camera. Well, I shouldn't say don't really care about it, but here's some issues that I've found. And the first one, I've been braying on about this, and people just roll their eyes, but is the sound it makes. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Now, yes, I have installed the new firmware. Yes, I have the new sounds available, and I'm still unimpressed. And the reason why is that this camera is incredibly engineered. It's really, really computer, really clinical, really. It was not made by someone who loved photography. It was made by someone who wanted to make this the best camera they could, and that means the fastest, the sharpest, the brightest, the most, in many cases, the most shrill, and there's just not a lot of mojo. It's really clinical, and the shutter speeds is the one place where they could have had a bit of fun. And I don't want a duck quacking. I don't want music on my shutter speed, but I would love to have the sound of a Nikon F2, or a Nikon F3, or a Nikon F4, or an F5. And I would love. I don't need a Hasselblad sound. I don't need a Pentax 6.7 sound. That's a bit weird. But I just would love like a nice snap, and the shutter sounds all kind of sound the same, and But anyway, that's actually the most minor thing. Other things that I would like to see on this. The EVF and the display on the back will display information, of course, shutter speed, that kind of stuff. And you can either have it all on, or you can have half of it on, or you can have it all off. And what I would love is to be able to go in and itemize, I want that, I don't want that, I want that, I don't want that. Because there's like 6 or 8 things that I really would love to have on my screen, and everything else I don't need. And on my Fuji, you can actually go in and you can select what you want to see and what you don't want to see. And on this camera, you don't have that option. The other thing that I find confusing is that on my D500 and on my D810, when you would scroll through the different display modes, the mode that showed you your highlights, the mode that showed the fact that you were clipping, said highlight on it. which I actually found really handy because when I'm going through in a hurry, I'm like, oh, there it is there. And especially if you're not clipping that photo, sometimes it's kind of hard to tell which screen is the right screen. Now, in this case, it's actually a different shape of image, so it's not that hard to figure out, but it would be great just to have highlight written on the bottom. The other thing about this camera, the other things about this camera, is, this is partly operator error, I'm sure, but just kind of weird. When I put a prime lens on, I put my zoom on 2470 2.8. It's fine. I take the lens off, I put on my 20 or my 35, and focus peaking comes on. And the first time that happened, I just about died because I thought my camera was on manual focus. And then but it's weird. Like, why is focus peaking on with my prime lenses, but not with my zoom? I don't know. If somebody, I'm all ears. The other thing that sort of drives me crazy is I've run into this is that my EVF, the switch between showing it in the viewfinder and on the screen, there's a little, there's a sensor there. I know where it is, and I also have, reading the manual, I'm well aware of all the different view modes. And for some strange reason, we could not. I was on set with an art director, and I was, looking through the camera, taking photos, and then I'd step back, and previously, the first shot we did, the screen would come on, and he could see what we were doing. And then all of a sudden, it disappeared. And and I was scrolling through the modes, and I could not get it to work. And now, lo and behold, it's working again. So who knows what it is? And then the other thing that I think is actually coming from my nose is that all of a sudden the focus point will go somewhere else entirely on the camera. And I'll look through and I'll take a photo, and then I'll look through again, and the focus point will be up here or down there or something like that. And I'm fairly confident that's me touching the screen, but it's a bit unnerving when that happens. So that's, so it feels a little bit kind of buggy. It feels like, okay, so there's two possibilities here. One is that the Nikon engineers said, they don't need that. The other possibility, in fact, which I think is quite likely, is the Nikon engineers were like, yeah, we're going to have to leave that on the floor. We, for whatever reason, can't do the different histograms, or for whatever reason, we can't show you, the limitation on the clipping, that kind of thing. And either it was too much trouble, or it wasn't technically possible with the technology that they have in front of them. Because goodness knows there's an unbelievable amount of stuff in this camera. It has got to be one of the most technologically advanced things I've ever had the pleasure of hanging out with. And as a camera, I'm very happy with it. I don't want anybody to think that I would go back to the 810 or the 500, both of which are very competent cameras, both of which serve me very well. And the only thing that I would love in this camera is I would love fewer megapixels. I really would. I just, God, it's amazing how much data you can capture. I had to buy some new cards. When you're shooting with 47 megapixels, and I know you can, there's ways around it, but I don't know. That's my only complaint, is that there's just too much data, and I just don't see the value, and I know I'm alone on that, and I know that the other cameras have even more megapixels. But that said, I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to, get an 85. I'm going to keep shooting. And I'll, in a couple of months after I've shot a whole bunch with it, I'll let you know what I think. And thanks for watching.